Will Maryland football land another five-star?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net, so make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. Does Maryland football have another five-star that could potentially join Zion Elee in the Maryland 2026 class? So as you guys all know, Zion Elee, the five-star edge from St. Francis, just committed to Maryland a couple of days ago. The St. Francis Academy edge rusher, 6'3.5", 220, ranked as the number 2 ranked player in the entire class. Number 1 in the state of Maryland, the number 1 edge rusher. Maryland just hasn't been able to get guys like that, and it was a pretty cool time for us to be able to land a guy like that. Hopefully we can keep him. I don't know exactly what we pulled out in terms of NIL funds. I don't know exactly what went down, but it's definitely a pretty big time commit that we landed Zion Elee in our 2026 class, following how we've been recruiting in our 2025 class. We've been doing a really good job with the Maryland 2025 class, and now we're moving on to the 2026 class, and it's off to an even better start than the 2025 class was off to. And we get a type of talent that you just don't normally get in Zion Elee. They call him one of the most complete edge rushers in the entire class. But now the question is, what's next? You land a kid like Zion Elee, you enjoy it for a couple of days, you celebrate it for a couple of days. But recruiting, it always feels like, especially in football and basketball, it can be a little bit different. But when we're talking about football, it's always who are you going to go after next? Who do you want to land next? Who's next on your board? Who else can you go ahead and get? You got five-star Zion Elee. One player doesn't make a class. One player doesn't make a football team. And you always want to continue to go after high-level guys, especially if you're Maryland football, because you've been known to maybe get a guy or two, but to get a complete class full of really talented guys is not easy. And the Terps look like they're very much in the conversation with another five-star, which could absolutely be crazy if Maryland's able to land another five-star in their 2026 class. And Immanuel Iheanacho. I'm trying to say his last name right. It's a little bit of a complicated last name, but I'm just going to call him Immanuel for now. The five-star offensive lineman is another DMV kid that's ranked as the number 5 ranked player in the entire class for the 2026 class. And clearly Zion Elee has started to put on work on this kid, Immanuel Iheanacho. Let me say this. He's right there in the DMV. He goes to Georgetown Prep, which is about 30 minutes, a school that's about 30 minutes from College Park. It's like right there, right in the area, right in the DMV area. Not a normal football powerhouse like St. Francis is that Zion Elee goes to. But the fact he's ranked as the number 5 ranked player in the entire class shows you what type of talent he is at the offensive tackle spot. And I've said it for a while now. Maryland, if they want to be able to compete with higher level teams in the Big Ten, you're going to have to recruit the trenches better. We have done a good job at times at corner. Maybe not this past year. We didn't have the best corner group, but before that, we've had some good corners that are going off the NFL doing good things. Deontay Bakes, Tarheeb Still, Jacorian Bennett, some others as well. And then we've had good guys at the receiver position, Ty Felton, Caden Prather last year. Of course, Rakeem Jarrett. You can go all the way back to Diggs, like some of those other guys. We've had good guys there. We've gotten a good quarterback. Obviously, you're always going to have a high-level quarterback, but we've gotten a lot of high-level players at a lot of the skilled positions at wide receiver, at running back, at corner. It's time that if you want to take the next step as a program, it's about landing guys up front like an Emmanuel Iheanacho, who is the best offensive lineman, the best offensive tackle in the entire class, arguably, and has all the skills, has all the intangibles, all the talent that you want to be able to get someone that can really control your offensive line and be able to do some special things on your offensive line for Maryland football. You landed Jalen Gilchrist in the last class. You got a couple of really good guys in your 2024 class. And so if you start recruiting this offensive line at a high level, then that's when you're going to start to see an uptick, and you're going to see a Maryland offensive line that could have the potential to be a lot better than what it's been over the last couple of years. Because what last year or this year, excuse me, I think my microphone cut off there for a quick second, but I just believe that if you're able to land, I was just trying about how important it is to land some of these guys in the trenches, and our offensive line has been really bad. And if you're able to land another 5-star off or a 5-star offensive lineman and a 5-star defensive lineman, that's a really, really solid foundation for what Maryland football is trying to build, and it looks like Zion Elee has been putting in work on Emmanuel Iheanacho. I don't know if you guys saw, but on Twitter, Emmanuel Iheanacho actually reposted. Zion Elee said, "My guy's staying home too," and then he tagged at Emmanuel Iheanacho as well as another 4-star offensive lineman that goes to St. Francis. That's supposed to be a pretty talented kid as well, and so I think that's something else to look after. And when you land guys like this, I talked about the 2025 class. It's a ripple effect. You start getting guys that maybe you don't think you're going to get because they're like, oh, Zion Elee staying home, 5-star Emmanuel Iheanacho staying home. I want to be able to stay home and build something special with them. And I thought the Maryland 2025 class was special. You might look at the 2026 class and say, this class is something special. This class is something really cool that I didn't think Maryland was going to be able to do. And I think we have a really good chance at landing Emmanuel Iheanacho. We'll see how it goes, but I think it goes back to what we started talking about with recruiting. We have to land DMV guys. We have to land the high level. I always said you got to land the 4 stars in the DMV. You got to land a lot of those types of guys if you want to take the next step with their recruiting, but also the 5 stars like Zion Elee. If you really want to take a next step, land some of those guys. But there's a lot of different ranked players in 4 stars in the state of Maryland, in DC, in Virginia, and you got to be able to start landing some of these guys if you want to take the next step as a program. And I think we're seeing Maryland be able to do it. It's about landing the DMV guys. That's what it's all about, and that's how you take the next step. And our 2026 class is off to an amazing start, but it doesn't stop here. And whatever we've been doing to stay in conversation with some of these guys has to continue to happen. But I think you have to make a strong push for Emmanuel Iheanacho. And if you start recruiting the trenches and you start getting defensive linemen like Zion Elee and offensive lineman like Immanuel Iheanacho, then that's really special. They believe he's one of the most powerful offensive linemen they've seen. He's at 6'6", 350, which is huge. And he also has some of the longest arms. And so they love that about him as well. They say he could move to the interior offensive line because of his power, which I think does make sense. But he's just so powerful, and he could be a really good guy to have up front and turn into one of the better players in the Big Ten up front. Same thing I said about Zion Elee, the potential to be one of the better guys up front in the Big Ten. And I don't normally say this about offensive linemen, but he would have the chance to come in and play early for Maryland football, which I think is something that matters. And something that can help us with the struggling offensive line. And I really hope we're able to land Immanuel Iheanacho. Let's talk about Maryland's portal news. A lot of guys have entered their name into the portal. What position groups does Mike Locksley really need to look at? We'll talk about that next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. There's so many different things you can bet on FanDuel right now, whether it's college basketball, the NBA, the NFL. There's so many different things to bet on FanDuel. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel and make sure you bet on anything that you guys will want to bet on, whatever sport. The NFL, the college football playoffs are here, college basketball, all that stuff, the NBA. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let's talk about some portal news. Maryland football lost some guys in the portal. Who hurts the most? What guys do we need to replace? What position groups do we need to look at? So it's portal season for Maryland football. It's a time of year where people just start leaving, and it's an interesting kind of time. We'll see exactly what happens with the rest of it, but right now it's definitely, I don't want to say it's the transfer portal's killing us yet, but guys are definitely starting to leave. And so we saw a little bit of it. I think one thing that is immediately going to have to be addressed is the corner spot. We're losing a lot of guys, or not just the corner, the secondary. In just the secondary, we're losing a lot of guys in the portal at the secondary spot, which I think is something that really hurts. It's interesting because those guys didn't play well, but I was looking for a jump from some of these guys. But we've been losing a lot of guys in the portal in the secondary. We lost Kevin Thomas, who's a guy that was playing a lot last year as a true sophomore, played the third most snaps of all the Terps corners. I didn't think he was amazing, but he's now the 6th DB to leave Maryland, but he was a guy that played a lot as a true sophomore, so I thought he had a chance to improve. I thought he had a chance to get better and to make maybe a jump going into his junior year as he turns into an upperclassman. But he's not the only corner we lost. We also lost Perry Fisher, who started a lot of the year, but he struggled in the bigger role. I think a lot of people were excited, thinking he could make a jump. But I thought maybe he was another guy that could potentially get better going into next year. I thought maybe he needed a full year as a starter, maybe take some of the growing pains, but that he didn't look great at all. And then in the secondary, we also lost true freshman safety Brandon Jacobs. I think the one that hurts the most because I'm thinking Brandon Jacobs can be the next really good, not just safety for Maryland football, but just a really good next really good player for Maryland football. And so we lost him, which definitely doesn't help as well. And so I think when I start to look at it, I'm like, we have a lot of production to replace in the secondary. And you can't forget Dante Trader, Glendon Miller are gone. So nearly everybody that played, almost everybody, there's a couple guys still there, but almost every guy that played a role last year in the secondary left. Now it could be a good thing because let's be real, the secondary was pretty bad for a lot of the year. Just didn't look good, didn't live up to how we wanted them to play, didn't live up to maybe the talent that we thought a lot of them had. And so now I look at a Maryland secondary that's absolutely depleted. You have some good young guys, some freshmen last year that looked good, but I'm not convinced. Braden Lee got hurt down the stretch, and you have some other young guys, but it's like we don't want to depend on true sophomores or whatever to lead our secondary. I think you definitely want to start to look into the portal to add some more soft or to add some more corners and secondaries and safety guys because now I'm looking at it. Safety becomes a weakness after it had been a strength I felt for like a little bit now. I felt like Lendon, Dante, Bo Braid had made it a strength for a while. And now we don't have any safety play either. And I think that's an important thing to kind of address in the portal. I think we have some talented recruits, but I don't want Maryland to just play a bunch of freshmen. I want to have a better chance at competing. But the secondary is absolutely depleted. I think you have to be able to add a couple guys in the portal. I don't know exactly who you get yet. I'm not familiar with the names yet, and it's still kind of coming out. It feels like every day I see 100 posts on Twitter or Instagram. This name, this such and such has entered the transfer portal. So that's definitely something to look out for. It's for Maryland to add some corners and some safeties. We'll see kind of how it happens. We'll see if we're able to get anybody, but I think that's something that we definitely want to do. And then I also think we lost a couple other guys, nothing as major as the secondary spot. That has been bad. But I think when you look in the portal, Kyle Long also entered his name in, the Maryland offensive lineman. I'm not too concerned about him. He kind of was never solidified himself as a solid player in that role. But I think offensive line in general is just somewhere that we're going to have to attack, figure out a way to recruit better because it just hasn't been good. It has never been good under Mike Locksley so far. So that's something else that we're definitely going to be looking at for the Terps to get better at. But I think right now, you look at the portal, you got to be able to get some secondary guys. You got to be able to get some offensive linemen. Those are the two main places. Defensive linemen, honestly, too, at the D tackle spot, just losing guys to the NFL. But I think the portal, Mike Locksley's got to attack it hard because we don't have a lot of returning production. This roster looks pretty bleak, to be completely honest. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to look at and continue to get better at. Maryland basketball, should they be ranked in the top 25? What does bracketology say about them? I'll talk about that after this ad from Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed to perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus score an extra $30 off promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience that consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting expert at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites, from legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchases may apply. So the latest bracketology for Maryland basketball came out and has the Terps at an interesting spot. I think there's a couple different things I want to talk about. A lot of the KenPom net rankings still have us as a top 25 team, and we are receiving votes. And I saw something on Twitter or Instagram from somebody that said Maryland's a top 25 team without a top 25 resume, which I honestly think is fair. I don't think we have a top 25 resume. Our wins aren't amazing. but our losses and how we have lost games are clearly make us look like we're a really good team. We lost to two top 10-ish type teams in Marquette and Purdue, but we barely lost both of those games, both by 4 or 5 points. And I think when you give us the eye check, when you really watch Maryland basketball play this year, it's pretty obvious and it's pretty clear that we're going to be a top 25 team. And I believe that we're too complete. We're too good of a team. There's definitely, I think, our biggest weakness is bench scoring, bench shooting, getting guys off the bench to come score. But in terms of our starting lineup, it matches up with just about anybody in the Big Ten. And I really do believe that. And I think that as we continue to play games, after this 4-game win streak that we might go on, I think you could look at Maryland basketball as a top 25 team. But do I think we're a top 25 team? No. I think we would have had to beat Marquette or Purdue. I think we had a really good shot at winning both of those games, but we just didn't end up winning them, which is fair, which is fine, which happened. But I do think we're a top 25 type of team and a top 25 type of talent. But I don't think we have that resume yet. Maybe if we beat Oregon, then that's something that could do, but that's a while ways away. So I don't even really want to talk about that. But as we continue to win games, I think we have a really good shot at going on a 4-game win streak. If we do that, I expect us to be a top 25 team. But we are receiving votes right now, which is definitely important, which is definitely something, whereas other teams aren't. And so I think when you look at the Big Ten right now, there's plenty of teams that we're going to play that are ranked, that are doing pretty well. I said a couple weeks ago it's having a bit of a down year, but I think it's rebounded a little bit as teams have continued to look better. Like Michigan has looked better. Michigan State has started to look better. Like teams have started to look better. So I think it has started to rebound. Now in the latest bracketology, it's interesting. Um, I was reading an article on Maryland as an 8 seed, which I think aligns about where we are right now. I think that's fair. I think we can get to a top 6 or 5 seed in March Madness, which I think is where we want to be. I think that can absolutely happen. I don't think it's going to be easy to be able to do that, but I think we have the talent to be a top 6 or 5 type of team in March Madness. I think that when you look at our, like I talked about, similar to the top 25 team, but I do think that right now our resume leads us to being about an A seed. But here's what I'm just happy about. I'm honestly just happy that our names are in the conversation to be in the March Madness, because everybody knows last year what happened. We didn't even get a chance. We took early losses. We never got a chance to really be in the bracketology. Early season, we were preseason top 4 to finish, but we started losing games. It just didn't work out. And now we look at it and we're projected to be an 8 seed. And that's before we've played a lot of the meat of our schedule, which could be either a good thing or a bad thing. I think it'll be a good thing for us. I think we'll step up to the plate. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.